You know, the U.S. Constitution, it's supposed to be this incredible promise of justice for everyone. But what happens when you get to the border, in a place like El Paso, Texas? We're about to dive into a world where that promise seems to just break down and where power can go completely unchecked.
The whole idea behind the Constitution is to be the ultimate check on power, right? The thing that keeps everyone honest. But you gotta ask, what happens when that check just bounces?
Okay, so first things first, let's just lay down the groundwork. Before we can really get into where the rules are being broken, we need to be on the same page about what the rules are supposed to be. This is the stuff you probably remember from civics class, right? You've got Congress making the laws, the president enforcing them, and the courts figuring out what they mean. And here's the kicker, the supremacy clause. It basically says federal law is the final word. It's all about these checks and balances, designed so no one group gets way too powerful.
Okay, but here's where it gets really personal. The Bill of Rights. Seriously, think of it like your own personal shield. It was put in place for one specific reason. To protect you, the individual, from a government that gets a little too big for its britches.
So this shield, it's got some key features. The Fourth Amendment means no one can just search your stuff for no reason. The Fifth says you don't have to talk yourself into trouble. But the 14th Amendment? Whoa, that's the real game changer. It makes sure these rights protect you from everyone in government, whether it's a federal agent or your local police officer. That is the promise.
But what happens when we go to the U.S.-Mexico border? Because suddenly that beautiful constitutional promise, it starts to look a whole lot different. In this kind of high-stakes environment, the rules, well, they start to bend, and that creates something called the border exception.
So the first thing you have to get your head around is that there are kind of two different types of law enforcement operating here. You have your local and state police, and they're supposed to be bound by all those protections we just talked about. But then you have federal agents, think Customs and Border Protection, and they often play by a whole different set of rules.
And this right here, this is the legal concept at the very heart of the problem, the border exception. It basically punches a hole in your Fourth Amendment shield. It gives federal agents the power to search you, your car, even your phone, all without a warrant, as long as they can say it seemed reasonable.
So, does this actually happen? Oh yeah. Just look at this number. By 2024, warrantless searches of people's phones and devices by border agents exploded to over 46,000. That's a huge leap. It's not just some abstract legal theory, right? This is happening to thousands of people.
And this quote from our source material, it just perfectly captures how people feel on the ground. Yeah, it's raw, but it gets right to that feeling of complete powerlessness, where your constitutional rights feel like they don't even exist.
So when you feel that powerless, it leads you to a pretty stark conclusion, a powerful theory, that El Paso isn't so much a city governed by law, but more like a collection of different fiefdoms, each with their own untouchable ruler.
And look, this isn't just some wild conspiracy theory. It's backed up by actual documented cases. You've got a CBP officer taking bribes from a cartel, an El Paso police officer helping out a cocaine dealer. There's even an internal affairs guy who tried to frame his own whistleblowers. It really starts to look like a pattern.
So here's how the theory goes. It's pretty simple, actually. Each powerful group controls their own little kingdom. The local cops, they run the streets. Border Patrol, they run the border. The Barrio Azteca gang, they run the prisons from the inside out. And the cartels, they control the supply from Mexico. Everyone's got their turf, and regular people are just stuck in the crossfire.
And the cost of a system like this? Well, it's devastating. It's paid in human lives. Because when every fiefdom is just protecting its own patch, the whole system becomes a sieve. Deadly drugs like fentanyl just pour through. And you can see the result right here, a huge jump in overdose deaths in El Paso. It's a tragic, predictable consequence.
All of this, it just makes people incredibly cynical about the so-called war on drugs. You start to wonder, are those big press conferences about drug busts just for show? Just a bit of theater? It feels like law enforcement catches just enough to look good, while the real supply chain and all the money it generates keeps flowing just fine.
And this whole system, it's supercharged by technology. We're talking about drones watching the entire city from above, cameras that automatically track every car's license plate, even devices called stingrays that can basically jam your phone and spy on you. Then you add in the fact that body cam footage has a funny way of going missing, and you have a perfect storm for power without any accountability.
So, if the problem is all this unchecked power and zero accountability, what's the fix? Well, the source suggests something pretty radical. Audits. Just
Total and complete transparency. Now, if you're wondering why this is so important, just look at this. In 2021, the city of El Paso literally couldn't find 21 of its own 33 police accountability reports. Nearly 2/3 of them just, poof, vanished. That's not a clerical error. That is a massive black hole where accountability is supposed to be.
So what's the proposed solution? Something called a Democracy Protection Agency. Just imagine an independent watchdog group that has the power to walk into any police department, any courthouse at any time and audit everything. No warnings, mandatory, every single year.
And the mission is so straightforward. Follow the money. Track the patterns of corruption and misconduct. Basically, shine a spotlight so bright that all the rot that loves to grow in the dark has absolutely nowhere left to hide.
And here's the most important part. This isn't just about writing reports that collect dust on a shelf. This agency would have real teeth. If an audit uncovers deep-seated corruption, the agency would have the power to pull that department's federal funding. Real consequences for bad behavior.
You know, the source puts it in the most direct way possible. The only reason a clean department would fight this level of transparency is if, well, it wasn't clean at all. Pushing back is basically admitting you have something to hide.
And really, that's what it all boils down to, isn't it? It leaves us with one last very simple question. It's the ultimate test, really. If a department is truly doing the right thing and serving the public and following the Constitution, what could they possibly have to hide?